This is What the FC. I'm Will Martin.
And I'm Matt McCutcheon.
MLS is weird, and we love a good story. Let's go. Welcome to What the FC. Today, we are going to give you a quick overview of who the heck we are and why you should listen to us.
Yes.
No, in all seriousness, though, I'm Will Martin, just to remind you.
And I'm Matt McCutcheon.
And we just want to give you a quick overview of where we're from, who we are, and then a little bit of overview on what this podcast is going to be. So why did we start it? What kind of topics are we going to cover? What's the schedule going to be like? You're going to find all that information here. So just to start us off, Matt, can you tell us a little bit about just your basic biographical info?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Hilton Head, South Carolina, but I've lived in Rock Hill, South Carolina for a while, and in the mountains in North Carolina, in a town you probably never heard of. But
right. Yeah, I probably haven't.
Yeah, but yeah, so I'm 21 years old and business administration major at Queen's University of Charlotte. So I first started playing soccer just like kind of rec league when I was like 5 or 6 years old. So that was kind of like my first exposure, but it was nothing serious because, I mean, I was one of 3 boys. So me and my brothers would always be playing any sport. So we'd play basketball, football, baseball, soccer. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just something that I enjoyed playing when it was that time of the year. And yeah, as I got older towards middle school, my brother was just graduating high school, and he gave me a piece of advice of, hey, Matt, like, you should just stick to one sport, and like you're at a time right now in middle school where you can really capitalize on that and eventually go to college to play, because that was a big regret of his. And so, I mean, in 7th grade, I was just sitting in my room just like, oh God, what sport do I want to like stick to? So I was playing basketball, and I was playing soccer, and playing football as well. So just a typical American. And yeah, I was just like, I really enjoy soccer. I really want to see what that will be like. And so ever since then, just been really, really focusing on that. And I had 2 season-ending injuries my freshman and sophomore year before or just after trials for club. And so I missed those from like knee surgery and stuff. That was just a recurring problem. And eventually just focused on high school soccer. So that was pretty much my breakthrough. I had my coach be my mentor and stuff, and started playing club and made some all-star games here and there, and then won state championship 2 years in a row, my junior and senior year. And that's when I really tried to focus on like the recruiting process and sending out emails, sending out any highlights that I had, and just my resume and everything to coaches around the area, pretty much the Southeast. But yeah, then got an offer to play at Queens here in Charlotte, and I was super stoked about that, and played, I guess that was 2018, and played in the fall there, and it was just like a different level of play than I was totally used to, because I just didn't have like that, I guess, that background that a lot of other players, people coming from academies, semi-pro, and everything at Queens, and really struggled to be honest, a lot there. I'm not even gonna front as if I'm like I was some all-star or whatever, but yeah, so I played at Queens and got through the spring of 2019 and just was really not enjoying it. Kind of like lost that passion for soccer, that love, and that I really enjoyed in high school. And eventually that summer, I decided that I was going to step off from the team, which was like a really, really big deal for me. That was like my identity was all about being a soccer player. That's what I would first tell people. It's like, hey, yeah, I play soccer at Queens, as if, that was something that means something to them. And yeah, and so that was pretty much my background with soccer. I always grew up watching the U.S. men's national team, and really, really love European soccer. I'm a huge Arsenal supporter, and I've been following them for a while. But yeah, so that's pretty much like a very brief background into my playing career, and then also my career as like a fan.
Yeah. So as for me, I'm from the Rock Hill, South Carolina, Fort Mill, South Carolina area. Fun fact, me and Matt actually went to elementary school together and part of middle school before he moved down to Hilton Head. And then I moved to Fort Mill, South Carolina in order to go to high school and because my dad had a job change. But yeah, so that's where I'm from. I'm also currently 21. I'm a communication major at Queen's University of Charlotte, where both me and Matt are students. Similar background to him. I've played forever, since the last time I could remember. I think my mom put me in t-ball at one point when I was like 6 years old, and that's the last time I played a sport other than soccer.
Roar?
Yeah, it was with Roar in Rock Hill, South Carolina. This is our recreational sports organization when we were little kids.
It's like church ball pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the last time I played a sport other than soccer. It didn't go well. It was not a great experience. So I stuck with soccer after that. Came up through, played quite a bit of club soccer, played varsity soccer in high school, all that kind of stuff. Ended up going through the college soccer recruiting process and ended up at Queen's University with Matt. I'm now going into my fourth year, my senior year. I captained the team last year, so I've been a full-time starter for 2 years, my sophomore and junior year. Played a bit my freshman year, played like crap, got benched. We've all had that experience. And then this was supposed to be my senior year, but obviously COVID-19 has thrown a wrench into everyone's well-laid plans. So that's where I've been, and that's kind of my playing background. As for my experience with soccer from a professional standpoint, as in a working standpoint, I have done a ton of work with media operations for various MLS and international events. So I have worked media ops for the Gold Cup games that were here in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium.
Was that last summer, right?
Yeah, that was last summer. It was the Mexico game, Mexico versus Martinique. It was like a 3-2 thriller. It was crazy. And then it was Cuba versus Canada, and Canada beat the crap out of them. So I was there for that, and then following up on that, I got an opportunity to work the MLS All-Star game last summer down in Orlando. So I worked media operations for that. I saw Nani hit the crossbar and the MLS All-Star Skills Challenge. I saw the homegrown game, and I saw the actual All-Star game. So that was a pretty cool experience. And then this summer, I spent the whole month of July working the entire group stage of the MLS's back tournament in Orlando. So I was one of the privileged few, I guess, that actually got to see those games in person, which was such a crazy life experience. And being field level and watching that many MLS games, I mean, it just gives you such an appreciation for the level of physicality, the speed of the game.
Yeah, because
getting
that's
to hear people talk, the communication from the goalkeeper, the amount of Spanish that was spoken. Yeah. Awesome experience.
Yeah, because that's always like a point of contention when talking about MLS. It's like, oh, well, like it's not the Premier League, it's not La Liga or Bundesliga,
and it's not. But the speed of play and the level of play is still quite high. Yeah, compared to what I can do.
Exactly. Yeah. So coming from like D2 soccer, compared to MLS, I mean, I guess that would be somewhat equivalent to MLS going to Bundesliga. Yeah. So there's still like a level of respect and everything there.
100%. But so that's me and Matt's background from a soccer standpoint and from just a general life standpoint. So what we really want to hit on with a lot of our podcast guests, anyone we have on here for an interview, we feel like everyone has that origin story that everyone has that one memory where you became a fan of soccer.
Yes.
Right? Not playing, not as a player, not as a coach, not as a professional working in it. Everyone has that one moment where they became a fan of the game. Yeah. And so Matt, go ahead and share your story.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, sports was always huge in my family. And so every Saturday morning I'd wake up early and just be eating breakfast and see whatever TV was on. And so flipping, I mean, it was always like college game day for football in the fall and everything like that.
Right.
And so I was just flipping through the channels one day, and I just happened to like pop onto like a Chelsea versus Arsenal game. I think it was like 2008 or something.
So you were like 9 years old or something?
Yeah. I was like 9, and I was just chowing down on my bowl of cereal just by myself in the kitchen, and And I just watched it and I was just so enthralled. Like I think it was Drogba and Lampard during their like heyday,
Right.
And then Michael Essien
What a team that was.
stuff.
What a team that
and
was.
then you had like the waning like Arsenal side, Thierry Henry and all the stars like kind of phasing out from there.
That's the back end of the Invincibles right there.
Yes, exactly. And I think they had either just moved to the Emirates or were preparing to. So there was like a big restructuring of the club.
Yeah.
But I think it was like 3-1 Chelsea. So I should be a Chelsea fan.
You should be a Chelsea fan.
But no, I just fell in love with Arsenal and that moment, like I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then the next morning I woke up and it was before church, so I was just like eating my bowl of cereal and flipped onto the TV, the channel again, and there was a different game, and I was like, oh wow, like this is awesome. And so it just kind of like snowballed, and then 2010, we had the World Cup where Landon Donovan and the infamous game against Ghana.
No, Algeria.
Algeria. Yeah.
Man, that goal against Algeria, I can still watch that back and it gives me chills.
Yes, exactly. And I remember watching that on vacation with my brothers, and we were all just like screaming, and that's kind of how they sort of got into soccer a little bit more.
But yours all came from that Saturday morning.
Yes.
Eating your bowl of cereal.
Yeah.
You just happened to turn on Chelsea Arsenal, and it just snowballs from there.
So it wasn't necessarily like a light switch, like, oh, I'm a ludicrous, like, soccer fan where I'm watching every game or whatever and following them. I mean, I didn't have like an iPhone or an iPod Touch back then or whatever to keep up with everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I mean, as I started getting more into soccer in middle school, it was like every FIFA me and my brothers would play and just binge that. And that's when I got to really expand my knowledge of soccer in terms of the different leagues and players and stuff. So playing with Real Madrid with Kaká, or I remember, and I think it was FIFA 11, freaking David Villa was the cheat code. You would shoot with him from
There's
half
always
field.
the one cheat code player.
You would shoot with him from half field, and the goalkeeper would be off his line. And so my brother would just beat me relentlessly with David Villa. And so then I started really investing into Arsenal about like 7th, 8th grade. Yeah. And ever since then, it's every transfer update I know, and then it just got to an unhealthy level with like all of the Premier League. Like I can list you.
Being an Arsenal fan's a tough existence as well. That hasn't helped you.
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. But yeah, that all being said, that's pretty much been my start, and it was just a catalyst to something that I never really dreamed of being as important to me as it is now.
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Yeah, my story's pretty similar in the fact that it wasn't exactly a light switch, but I can look back at this one point, and that's where it all started. So go back to 2009, so about a year after you had your kind of first experience. MLS Cup playoffs. I'm sitting in the living room, probably eating dinner or something, and watching sports on the TV with my dad. And we started watching MLS Cup playoffs because they were probably on ESPN or something like that. And this was the year that Real Salt Lake went on this crazy Cinderella run. They got into the playoffs on the last day of the regular season. They were the bottom seed. They came in and they upset the defending champions in the first round, and they won a penalty shootout over Chicago Fire in the second round, and then played against the LA Galaxy, the biggest team in MLS at that point. Beckham was there. Okay. Donovan was there. And then you've just got this Real Salt Lake team with just a lot of like lowly players. Their whole ethos was the team is the star. That was their motto. Okay. And then they drew 1-1 and won that in a penalty shootout too. So I watched RSL win 2 back-to-back penalty shootouts to win their first MLS Cup. It was crazy. That was back when MLS Cup was on neutral venues. Okay. So it was at CenturyLink Field in Seattle.
Very cool.
And I have this really vivid memory of watching warm-ups, and the Seattle fans are just packing out this neutral venue. So there was like barely any RSL LA Galaxy fans. It was all these. It was like 46,000.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, I looked it up. It was 46,000 like fans in here, and you just heard them going like Seattle Sounders, like back and
my
forth during warm-ups.
gosh.
And I just remember my mind was just blown by this.
I don't think you'd ever see anything like that in any other league worldwide in terms of having like a final game like that. And
it was
the
so
fan
crazy.
Base isn't even like reflective of like the two
It
teams.
was so crazy.
Like, what the heck?
So there's obviously a reason they don't do it like that anymore. But it was my imagination was captured by this RSL team that went on this Cinderella run, and
for sure.
they had awesome like jerseys and stuff, and just everything about them inspired me. You have Kyle Beckerman running around in midfield with these dreadlocks and Nick Raimondo in goal, and they just really inspired 10-year-old me. And so I started following them really casually at that point. Kind of made them my favorite team in the MLS app whenever I got my whatever I had at the time, iPod Touch or iPhone or whatever, you know, and then just it kind of snowballed over time, and now it's kind of a similar existence to being an Arsenal fan. It can be you're supposed to be a little bit better, but the budget, it can be a little bit more limited. They're a small market team, and so it can be kind of a tough existence. But
especially recently, if I think anyone who's American and in the sports world would probably know all the controversy going around RSL. That's a different episode.
Yeah, that's a whole different episode. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go Google Real Salt Lake owner.
You don't even need to look up Real Salt Lake. You'll get like maybe some highlights from their game against like Portland or whatever.
Yeah, and you'll see what we're talking about. So the organization's not doing great. But yeah, I mean, my aunt takes me and my brother. She told us that she would take us wherever we wanted for our graduation trip after high school, and I chose to go to Utah. And we went to Salt Lake City, and I saw my first Real Salt Lake game in person. So we're talking 9 years after I first fell in love with the team. It was the first time I got to watch them in person. Which is crazy, but it kind of shows exactly why we're starting this podcast, and the difference between our stories shows exactly why we're starting this podcast. There's fans like myself that my origin story was Real Salt Lake. So I fell in love with MLS and Real Salt Lake first. And then because I'm a soccer player, I ended up following European leagues as well. But I never had a team that it never meant that much fan culture wise to me. Whereas your origin story, just because of a fortuitous set of circumstances, became what it is. And so you've been this big European soccer fan, and you've never had a reason to watch Major League Soccer. That I mean, sure, you follow it casually and stuff, but you never had a reason like I did. I mean, there was no before Atlanta United is a recent expansion team, and
I tried. That was a big one for me too, because I remember when they got announced, and I was in high school. I think it was a sophomore or junior, and I was like, oh, very cool. Like we got, because like for people in the Carolinas, you'll know, like we've never had an MLB team, and so like
people hook onto the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, exactly. So I grew up watching the Braves and like love watching Freddie Freeman and all those people with my dad and stuff. And that was like the extent of it. I mean, I'm a Hornets fan. I'm a Panthers fan. Like, I'm not messing with the Hawks or the Falcons. They can go like do whatever. I'm like diehard. I'll suffer as a Hornets fan and a Panthers fan. But yeah, so like, I mean, I had Charleston Battery nearby, but I mean, that's like USL, and it's very hard to follow and get updates on like games and stuff. I mean, at least on the platforms that I use, so like Bleacher Report and stuff like that.
Exactly.
So I mean, I went to go watch a couple games. I mean, I played games there for a club, and I did go see West Brom. They played Charleston Battery in like a preseason game in the summer, and so that was really fun. That was like my first professional game that I went to go watch.
Saw Real Salt Lake play. Actually, I'll correct myself. The first time I saw Real Salt Lake play in person was actually at Blackbaud Stadium in Charleston, South Carolina, at the Battery Stadium, because they used to have that big preseason tournament every year where these MLS teams come in.
Yeah.
And I've got this old Charleston Battery jersey that's got Kyle Beckerman and Ned Grabavoy's signatures on it. I pulled it out the other day and found it.
Yeah,
and
I have a
about
couple
it,
of their training jerseys that I got, and they're pretty quality looking too. But
I mean, like you're saying, now people finally have a reason like a
Yes.
very good reason to turn back to MLS because we've
Exactly.
got a team coming in. If you don't know, Charlotte FC 2022. They were supposed to be 2021, so unfortunately they've pushed that back to 2022 because of fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic. Just want to give them a little bit more time to be able to sign players and everything because the whole player market is just a crap show right now.
And
so,
even like establishing infrastructure with backroom staff, front
All that
office
stuff.
members.
So understandable. So obviously it will not be coming in this coming season. They will be coming in 2022, which gives us plenty of time to familiarize ourselves with the league,
Exactly.
start figuring out who are the teams we hate, who are the teams that are okay, where do we think Charlotte FC is going to be in the hierarchy of all this kind of stuff, and start educating people like, what is MLS and how is it different from these leagues that you may have followed, whether that's La Liga or the Premier League or whatever it is, or if you haven't followed soccer before and now you're coming over from NBA or NFL or MLB, or you're just an American sports fan, but you're like, hey, this team's going to be here. I've got a reason to support them. I want to learn a bit about it. That's why we're here.
It's like that clout coming in with like a big MLS. I mean, at least in Charlotte, there's a big unveiling. It was all in the Charlotte Observer, and I had people that I knew who were like, "Oh, there's a new MLS team in town, right? What's that about?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. I mean, I know like the owner is David Tepper, you know, the richest owner in the NFL, what have you.
Also the owner of the Carolina Panthers.
Yes, Panthers owner, and so I knew that stuff, and I mean, other than that, I couldn't give them much information, and they're like, "You're the soccer dude, like why can't you just give us any info?" And so like, I mean, it'll be nice to give people an outlet so that, you know, if like what we said, for a person like me who's familiar with soccer but on a European side of it, or even South American or just world soccer in general, because I feel like at least Liga MX in Mexico and MLS are kind of anomalies when it comes to like structure of the leagues and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
But then, so it'll be nice for people who aren't familiar with MLS but familiar with soccer, but then more importantly for people who just want to get on board with soccer, because there's a big percentage of Americans who will watch the World Cup, and obviously the last World Cup was very difficult since the U.S. did not qualify.
Yeah,
moment of
set
silence.
us back a bit. Yeah, moment of silence.
Yeah.
Okay,
and moving forward, and so there's always like clout like build up around that, and I feel like there's probably like a spike in MLS interest afterwards, and you know, the women's national team as well,
right? So that's where we're going with this. So what this podcast is. Well, first, what it is not going to just be a reaction pod.
No.
I think there are plenty of those out there. You don't want to hear two 21-year-old college students, I think, tell you what we think of the games. There's there's plenty of podcasts with some resident experts and much more qualified people to do those things.
Yeah, and feel free. Like, that's the great part about soccer. Talk with your friends, not necessarily with a podcast or something, or at least like from us. Like, you know, go talk with your friends and be like, "Do you see that Real Salt Lake, like Portland's game or whatever?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, we'll do a reaction pod here and there. We'll do some predictions and stuff, and some postseason reactions, and we'll do some stuff here and there to have a little bit of fun with it. But that's not the bread and butter of the podcast.
No.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off our first 5 episodes with our MLS 101 mini series. So basically, MLS, like we mentioned before, is hands down got to be the weirdest league in the world.
Yes.
Especially like this side of the hemisphere. I mean, maybe there's some like crazy stuff going on in like Kyrgyzstan or something, but I don't know a lot about that. So of the leagues I know, MLS is just crazy. I mean, crazy roster rules. We've got a salary cap, crazy travel. I mean, you're talking a huge country to get cross country. You're not just hopping on a bus to get to the other side of the country. You're talking
it's not like a 2-hour like train ride
Yeah.
to your next game like it is in England or what have you.
Exactly. And you're talking just weird ownership groups, weird rules, a weird history. I mean, if you look up like MLS circa 2001, you're going to get some weird
just look
stuff.
up MLS penalty shootout.
When they had I mean, there was a time when MLS had these penalty shootouts where you started basically at half field and
like,
you had
like an NHL. Like
it's a
like
hockey style shootout.
Yes.
They actually did that in a major sports league.
Yes.
And everyone was like, what are we doing here? Obviously, it's not like that anymore. We're kind of beyond that.
Yeah.
MLS is now in line with FIFA and IFAB. Their rules are in line with all that kind of stuff. But you're talking about a really weird league here that's done some weird stuff. We've got playoffs, which our European soccer fans might not be as familiar with.
Yeah, more like Champions League.
Yeah, it's like Champions League melded into a national league. So just some weird stuff, right? So we're going to do 5 episodes that let you know everything you need to know, from the teams to the players to the coaches to the weird salary roster rules to the weird special competitions here like MLS All-Star Game, CONCACAF Champions League. We're going to give you the overview on all of that.
And importantly, like to note, like I'm not familiar with like half of that. Like I might know on like a very surface level of like, okay, I know that the MLS has like an allocation budget similar to what like the NBA has, or I mean, I guess they aren't as strict with theirs because people are getting like hundreds of millions like out the wazoo, but more like NFL. NFL is a lot more strict with their salary caps and and stuff like that. So it's more similar to that compared to something in Europe that's a lot more like free market.
So Matt is going to be our stand-in audience member, basically.
Yes, pretty much.
He knows a bit. I know a lot. So I'm going to be bringing a lot of the content. I'm going to have my whole set of research out here, and I'm going to be going through this overview, and Matt is going to sit along right with you guys and ask, hopefully, the questions that you guys have, because as a really into it MLS fan, I don't know what I don't know. Yeah. And sometimes I can just gloss over things, and Matt's probably going to make me back up and be like, wait, what is that?
Yeah, like it's something that's small, like a small like inkling or whatever, like detail might be just relatively unimportant to you, but that might just ring some way to me and hopefully the listeners' ear. And then we can like clarify topics as we go along.
So that's going to be pretty entertaining. Matt's going to be kind of going on that journey with all the rest of you and learning about the league a bit. So that's going to be a fun time. After we finish that, then we're going to move into more what our show is going to be long term. Yeah. So Matt, you want to tell a little bit about what we're going to be doing long term?
Yeah. So, and like we said, instead of being like a reaction pod, we're wanting to kind of delve like into the soccer culture of America, because I think that's something that's very controversial in terms of the identity of it, because you have people that are like, oh, well, we have a very large Hispanic population, and so we want something that's a little bit more South American in terms of like...
Or Latin American.
Yeah, Latin American and what have you. And so we want to have like that type of culture, and then we have people that are like, oh, no, European soccer is like the pinnacle of everything, so we need to have something like that. And and then it's like, at the same time, it's like, we're American. Why can't we have our own like unique soccer identity? And that's something that's very much put down, like, and we're very much self-conscious of to an extent. Like when we say, oh yeah, I love soccer, like even like at Queens on our own team, people, no one calls it really soccer. We have people from England, Spain, Germany, Brazil and stuff, and I mean obviously they don't call it soccer, and so like we'll say something and we obviously get like this stare from them, maybe, or maybe not even, we just think that they're looking at us different. But anyways, looking at like cultural stories, or looking at like developments within like the Carolinas. So like Charlotte Independence is like a, I guess, minor league, if you can hear my air quotes that I'm doing as I say that, a team here in Charlotte. But like we can look at, well, what does Charlotte FC like mean to the future of Independence? Because I mean that's their whole market share just like definitely disrupted. Or how does Charlotte FC like utilize its partners and like make partnerships with like lower teams to send players to develop or what have you. So
and like, what are people doing in the community? What does the supporters group look like? There are going to be a lot of just individual personal stories, just the personal journeys that people have had in our own communities that are probably really fascinating, but no one's ever given it airtime. And that's really what we're trying to do. We're going to try to be a bit interview based, bring guys in, bring people in, and let them tell their stories. I mean, think 30 for 30
Yeah,
or
yeah.
E60. Those are the types of stories that we're looking to find here. And whether that's an individual story, whether that's a business story, whether that's a media story, whatever that is, we're just looking for those and trying to tell those stories. And I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and to give context to the audience, so Will and I were supposed to be taking. Well, we took a course in the spring, and we were supposed to be going on a trip to conduct business analytics and storytelling research for the Olympics in Tokyo through our school. And so we are not sponsored, but partnered with like NBC Broadcasting. And so we were going to be like on site conducting our own research projects, which we pretty much were doing for the entirety of the beginning of the year. And just like doing all of the work except for the like groundwork that we would be doing in Tokyo.
The idea was that we were going to come into Tokyo. We were going to spend 2 weeks there during the Olympics. But while everyone is telling stories about what's actually happening on the field or on the court or whatever have you, we were going to be telling stories about the impact of having that major international event on the city. So we were going to be in the streets. We weren't going to have press passes just covering, the basketball final or whatever, or the 100-meter sprint. We were looking for the people, the small businesses, the little cultural stories. We were trying to look down those side streets and those alleys that most people just walk past while they walk towards the stadium.
Exactly.
And that's what we were going to be bringing back here. And we had a deal in place. We were going to get our stories published online and stuff. And I was on more the storytelling side. Matt was on more the business side.
So like some of the stories that me and my group were looking into was innovations in technology, using the Olympics as like a platform to highlight that innovation in tech with like autonomous vehicles and Toyota and what have you. But continue.
And for sure. And so we kind of lost that opportunity a bit, which was a little unfortunate, but one door closes, another door opens. We had the idea to come do this.
And funny enough, so it was I guess it was in July maybe, or
like late July, early August.
And so I was working in the summer. I work as a carpenter, and so I was at the shop doing a bunch of just like milling work, doing a bunch of sanding, and so very monotonous. Listen to podcasts like all over the spectrum, from political commentaries, comedians, or sports, and I was just like, man, I really missed out on this opportunity to go to Tokyo. I want to get like this opportunity to really like give my voice and opinion on like the business side, because I was a sport management major and initially, and I just love the business of sports, and so I just on a whim just typed up this huge paragraph and was like, Will, I have this like amazing idea. I want to do a podcast and kind of do what we're going to do for Queens in Tokyo, but for MLS, and told him the storyline that we've told you at the beginning of the episode. And then I sent it. And then as soon as I pressed send, I was like, what did I just do? Like I was like, oh wow, I guess I'm relatively committed to this. I can't just be like, never mind, like whatever. And
I didn't even give him time to say never mind. I think I responded in like 10 minutes. I was like, this is awesome. Let's do this now. Because I'd always wanted to do something like this as a communication major. I do a lot of multimedia projects and stuff like that, and I'd always wanted to do a podcast, but I never had something that I felt like was worthy of adding to the space. And then Matt had this brilliant idea, and we've had good chemistry, and we had this great idea to do something a little bit different in this soccer podcasting
because
space.
I think within our own friend group, we have, I mean, it's very much European soccer heavy, and then we'll
some Chelsea
watch,
fans, Arsenal fans.
We were watching like, I think it was in the fall last year. We were watching we were watching RSL in the playoffs and what have you, and so we were all like together, and everyone was pretty well clueless, and other than yourself, obviously.
And I just found myself trying to like educate everyone at one time during RSL's playoff game about so like what was going on,
bemoaning like conceding a goal or just like really bad possession or like something like that. He's also like taking the time like, okay, I gotta explain to you who these people are and like and their background and what have you. So it was like nice. I thought, like, when I was thinking of the idea in terms of my story, I was like, who would be a good co-host? Who would be someone that obviously knows like how to do a podcast. I mean, I'm a business major, not a communications major. And so, I mean, obviously, like, we have good conversations talking about MLS relatively, because I feel like I'm the most interested out of our friend group who's not like actually invested in MLS at this current point
100%
in time. So it just felt like a natural conclusion to be like, oh, Will would be like the perfect person.
Absolutely. So then we started researching equipment, bought our equipment, started figuring out, hammering down the details of what we wanted to do, and basically just shared all of that in the previous 30 minutes here with you guys.
Exactly.
So schedule-wise, we are going to be releasing weekly episodes, probably on Sundays. So we're releasing a new episode every Sunday. So anything you want to add, Matt?
Yeah, and maybe like the odd, like I know for MLS playoffs, we're going to be releasing an episode of like previewing that and
maybe some bonus episodes here and there.
Exactly. If there's something that pops up that we're like, oh, dude, we got to like talk about this real quick. You know, we'll have something like that, but obviously try and keep you all updated on our social media accounts like in the meantime. But yeah,
obviously. So to wrap it up, it would be a huge help if you guys can please listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to follow us on social media and stay up to date with everything we're doing, check out the show notes for this episode for links to our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you know anyone that would be interested in learning more about MLS or learning more about soccer cultural stories that you think this podcast would be good for them, please share it with them. We'll include some resources for you to be able to share it really, really easily. And that is pretty much it.
And if there's like any like more business related questions or details about the podcast or anything y'all want to talk to us about and more linked, you can obviously DM us or email us us at whatthefcpodcast@gmail.com so that we can talk to you in kind of like a more professional or more like in-depth manner.
Yeah, absolutely. So until next time, my name is Will Martin.
And I'm Matt McCutcheon.
And this is What the FC.